It is Monday, September 20th, and I'm glad that you're here. Last week, we began a series, The Gift of Friendship, and we talked about Moses being a friend of God. Well, in honor of that, let's look at the 10 Commandments of Friendship as written by Elizabeth George. Number 1, speak to people. There is nothing as nice as a cheerful word of greeting. 2, smile at people. It takes 72 muscles to frown and only 14 to smile. 3, call people by name. The sweetest music to anyone's ear is the sound of their own name. Recognition, right? 4, be friendly and helpful. Actions speak louder than words. 5, be cordial. Speak and act as if everything you do were a real pleasure. That's why we love Chick-fil-A, right? It's my pleasure, aside from it being Christian chicken. Number 6, be genuinely interested in people. You can like everyone if you try. I'll have a caveat here. You might not like everyone, but you can certainly love everyone. Number 7, be generous with praise, cautious with criticism. Amen. Number 8, be considerate of the feelings of others. It will be appreciated. Number 9, be thoughtful of the opinions of others. 10, be alert to give service. What counts most in life is what we do for others. Actions speak louder than words. That is so true. What we do for others is what counts. Self-sacrifice, washing the feet of one another. And that's exactly what our example for this week does. Ruth is such a beautiful example. And it is not a love story, so to speak, like Cinderella, although it echoes that, and that's what a lot of people think. But it is more, so much more. And if you stick with me till the end, you will be amazed to see the layers that God and the nuances that God has put into this story. That is why it's in the canon. That is why one of the reasons it is included in our Bible. Well, Ruth is one of the most traditional names used in America. It either comes from the name, the derivative of Reuel, which means something worth looking at, or Reuth, which would be more of a Hebrew name, meaning a friend of God. Well, we will see, and you probably already know, that Boaz certainly thought she was someone to look at and something worth looking at. And we know that her relationship with Naomi was a rare friendship, a woman of rare and exquisite friendship. So she exemplifies both of those derivatives. Months ago, we mentioned that there were 3 things that a Jew never wanted to be considered: a Gentile, a dog, or a woman. So you can imagine being a widowed woman, a woman without a husband. That was a woman to be taken advantage of and to be ignored. And that's why James 1:27 tells us to take care of widows and orphans. That's what pure religion is, because they are overlooked. And I won't even get started on that. That was just an add-in because that is my heart's desire. Amen. All of you know that. But so Ruth would have been in this category. She would have been someone that would have been poverty-stricken. And Naomi, especially being older and being in Moabite land, not being a foreigner. And this was close to the heart of Jesus. That's why he says to John, who can be full of himself, the disciple, James and John, who can be full of themselves, the sons of thunder. If you watch The Chosen, you see that. But he was also the disciple that Jesus loved. And he says to him, on the cross, that's where his heart was, still caring for Mary, his mother. And he says, woman, here is your son. And he says to the disciple John, here is your mother. And from that day on, John took Mary into his home. That shows us how important it is, one, to God's heart to take care of widows and orphans, but two, what it was like in that ancient Near Eastern culture, that Jewish culture, or that context, right? And Greco-Roman society, to see how widows were mistreated. And Jesus wanted to take care of his mother, even as he was taking care of all of us. Wow, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, we're going to get through all of the book of Ruth. There's only 4 chapters, just like Jonah. We're going to hit some significant verses in each of the chapters, starting in chapter 1, and I think we're going to start at verse 15. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people, that's Orpah, and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. See how Lord is capitalized. That's showing us in the original text that it's meaning Elohim, Yahweh. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. Naomi encourages her daughters-in-law to go back to their homeland, to go back to their family, their tribe, to take care of them. We skipped over verse 13, but in this verse, it's Naomi saying, no, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord, capital, the Lord's hand has turned against me. Now, we don't want to judge Naomi harshly. She lost her husband and she lost her 2 children, her only 2 children. I mean, I can't imagine that. We've seen what Ruth's name means or could have meant, but what does Naomi's name mean? Naomi means pleasant, but she is saying here that I am bitter. She's saying I am bitter, that she's saying nothing is pleasant about my life right now. And we'll see in the next couple verses where she talks to the people that she hasn't seen for over a decade. And that's how she announces herself. She announces herself as bitter. This is a hard one because Naomi's calling, her calling as a Jew, her calling as a mother, her calling as a mother-in-law, her calling as a woman of God is clouded right now by her grief. And God's shoulders are big enough to handle that. He can handle all that grief throws at him because the Holy Spirit lives inside us. And it says the Holy Spirit is God and he is our advocate and he grieves with us. He grieves with us. Psalm 30 verse 5 says, although sorrow may last for a night, joy comes in the morning. And that's because pain is inevitable, my friends and my friend, but misery is optional. Pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. Naomi's bitterness caused her to overlook the resources she had. She had a daughter-in-law. She had relationships with others and a relationship with the one true God, the source of everything, her all in all, what she truly needed. I don't judge Orpah, the other daughter-in-law, for going back to the homeland. I mean, maybe she would. Maybe she did accept the faith of her husband and became Jewish and thought, hey, I can stay strong in Moabite land and I can do this on my own. However, if you have ever, isolated yourself from the church or never been a part of a church, you don't realize what it's like to not be around the Ruths of the church, the ones that keep us accountable and the ones that encourage us. And so Ruth was saying to Naomi, you know what? She said, where you go, I will go, as surely deal with me ever so severely. Essentially, what she was saying is, the Lord gives and takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In other words, God is sovereign. I will bless him in the desert times, and I will bless him on the mountaintops. Blessed be the name of the Lord God Almighty, the one true God. And so Ruth goes with Naomi into the land of the chosen people. And it seems from what she said, what we read, that she definitely had accepted the religion of her husband, and she had become a Jewish woman and said, that's why she could say, blessed be the name of the Lord. And so the two unprotected, might I add, women start walking toward Bethlehem. They're on foot. It's the latter part of spring based on the other dynamics, which I won't get into all that. I mean, if you were in my class and I was teaching you hermeneutics or homiletics or anything else, because I go in wild trance, right? Rabbit trails and I don't know what I was going to say. Rants and, trance. Wild rabbit trails and rants. Not really rants though. But anyways, yes, so much the Lord has given me and blessed me, this poor little girl from the projects, that he has just blessed me so much and given me so much to give back. A broken vessel emptied and poured out for others. And I just want to share so much. So I won't go on that rabbit trail. I went on a rabbit trail to not explain the rabbit trail. Stop. They go. They're on their way. They're crossing over. They see the sun setting on the western horizon of Bethlehem and in their sights. And as they're coming upon Bethlehem, all the women, all the matriarchs that knew Naomi from over a decade ago, grew up with her. They're like, is that Naomi? And oh my goodness, who's with her? Where is her husband? Where is Elimelech? What has happened? And they run towards her. Ruth 1:19 says, they say, can this be Naomi? All that she had possessed, both in the past and now in the future, even though it was little, it was a faithful friend. It was Ruth. All rushed over her broken spirit, and she knelt and she wept, and she said to them, this is in Ruth chapter 1, verse 21. Call me not Naomi or the pleasant, but Mara, bitter, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. She spoke it out into the atmosphere again, because we had seen where she had said that to her daughters-in-law. I've been convicted of this so many times. I've echoed and complained and grumbling and grumbled. Grumbling. That's a study we're going to do sometime, because you would not believe how many times God judges that in the Bible. We need to be careful with what we say, what we speak into the atmosphere. What we complain about is what we proclaim about. Be careful, my friends. Remember, all authority under heaven is given to us. Every victory is ours. We overcome how? By the blood of the Lamb and the word, yes, the word of our testimony. That's how we overcome. The word of our testimony. Pain is inevitable. Misery is a choice. Chapter 2. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Oh, there's our word from last week. Naomi said to her, Go ahead, my daughter. So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. Naomi didn't give her any direction, and she entered a field. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. You see here that there's no direction given to Ruth. She has the purest and most devout form of devotion. She is accustomed to more. She was a wife. She didn't work in the fields. She might have worked in their field, their little plot of land, gardening in Moab, but she didn't work in the fields. Her delicate hands were not used to the rough labor she was going to be exposed to, but she did it without grumbling and complaining because she was going to serve God by serving her mother-in-law. And so she went to do her duty among the common hirelings in a foreign land that she had never been to before. She had initiative for God to provide for her, and that's why she went, because God does not do for man or woman what he or she can do for themselves. You've heard me say that before. God uses us. He wants to partner with us. That's what fellowship is. That's why we have a free will. Obedience is better than sacrifice. Israelite law demanded, that's a strong word, demanded the corners of the fields not be harvested so that the grain that was dropped could be picked up by the poorest of the poor people. This is where we get the word gleaning. Have you ever heard that word before or used that word? I gleaned that from them. That means that you got something that you didn't deserve. You picked it up from them. And that's what Ruth was doing. She was gleaning grain from the corners of the fields that was left behind by Boaz's harvesters. The purpose of the law was to feed the poor and also to keep the rich from becoming hoarders. Don't you wish we had that law today? I'm not talking about socialism. I just had to add that, okay? Because that doesn't equate. But people doing what they're supposed to do because we all care for one another. We care for each other. So, under Jewish law, Ruth had the right to glean in any harvest field that she wanted to. In God's providence, she went to Boaz's field. She didn't know him. She didn't know anyone. She went to Boaz's field because the steps of the righteous are what? They're ordered by God. Yes, I am preaching. They are ordered by God. She went there because diligent Ruth was doing what she knew the Lord of the harvest would have her to do. And what does the psalm tell us? God is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. She sought God to take care of her and her mother-in-law, and he was rewarding her. He's rewarding her, and she's at this point thinking only with the grain that she's getting from the corners of the fields, but she has so much more in store. Watch this. Okay, chapter 2. Starting at verse 10. At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you have left your father and mother in your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Oh, that's so good. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my lord, she said. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. Her reputation preceded her. Boaz noticed her and gave her protection in acknowledgement of her loyalty to Naomi. She said, I may be a stranger to you, but he's like, but you are no stranger to me. I've seen what you have done. The whole community has taken notice of a foreigner who has accepted, had converted to Jesus Christ, to the Lord of Lords, to Yahweh, and is now doing what the law commands, taking care of the elderly, taking care of their loved ones. He's like, you wonder how this all happened, but I know what you have done. And this seems like the good old story, right? The rags to riches story. The plot is building. The poverty to plenty story. And it sort of is, but it's more than that. And that is what makes every good movie, if you are true to the fact. I've said this before in the sense of like it's always about the prodigal son returning to the father, but it's always about more than that. It's about redemption. The redemption is the story that never, 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 never gets old. This story is more than just the redemption of poverty to plenty or rags to riches or whatever else we see in Les Mis or I'm not condoning or whatever any of these stories, but Shawshank Redemption, all those movies that are about redemption, right? That are such great hits. It's not about that. This is a story about Jesus Christ. It's a story about the lost and the guilty sinner finding and meeting through Jesus Christ, because he may be a stranger to us, but we are no stranger to him. We have never been a stranger to him. He knew us. He saw us on the cross. You are not a stranger to Jesus Christ, the Redeemer of all mankind. Chapter 3. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. The winnowing process is a process of throwing up the grain, and after it's been kind of hit down, it's hit down with a shovel when the wind blows and it's winnowed. Well, the farmer usually remained all night with his harvest, and especially if you were a wealthy farmer like Boaz was, because he would not only want to protect his crops, he would be there to help work the crops because there was so much to be done to get the winnowing process done. And they would do it in the evening after the hot of the day when the cool breeze would blow through. So what Naomi is telling her is to get all dolled up, get your perfume on, smell a little bit better than when you go to during the day to pick from the corners of the fields, and go while Boaz is there. We know he'll be there tonight because they're winnowing. So be there tonight during that process and present yourself to him. And this is what happens next. Wash, put on your perfume, get dressed in your best clothes, then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he is finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. Now, this is something that Ruth has not had to do before. Sorry about that, went the wrong way. Something she's had to do before. So she is, okay, Naomi, I'm going to trust you. You've not led me astray. We've been in this together. I'm going to go do this. So she goes to where they're winnowing, and she what she does seems a little, it's not an act of impropriety. It seems a little forward, even for us in our 21st century mind. Okay, even for me in my 21st century mind, for her to go and to do this. But it was totally the custom, especially in the rural manners of Bethlehem. What would happen is, they would be winnowing, and then the master would go to sleep. And so Boaz would be sleeping. And what would happen is his servants would lay the opposite direction of him. So they would lay the opposite direction of him. And so what Naomi is saying is, go place yourself like a servant to Boaz. Uncover his feet. In other words, cover yourself a little bit with the cloth of his feet and see what happens next. So it was not an act of impropriety in any way, shape, or form. She's basically reminding him or telling him, you are our kinsman redeemer, which she probably doesn't fully understand at this point, but Naomi does. And she's trying to direct her daughter-in-law in the correct way of, one, the Jewish law, and of what and how to act accordingly as a Jewish woman. She's not lived in Bethlehem before. So here we go. Verse 7. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking, he was in good spirits. He went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I am your servant, Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of my family. Again, she had already drawn a part of the mantle over her. And so she was asking him, now it's your choice. It's in your hands. It's in your ballpark. Do you want to actually draw a part of the mantle over me? Not anything else, not anything unvirtuous, but him to make the choice if this is what he would want to choose to do. To say, I am going to do what? To spread a part of my skirt over you to show that I am going to what? Protect you. Protect you. Isn't that what every woman wants? To know someone that is going to protect her, to keep her secure. I don't care what anyone says. The greatest need of a woman is security, and the greatest need of a man is respect. I don't care what books you read. I've read it over and over again through the Bible, and I have counseled hundreds of people. The greatest need of a woman is security, and the greatest need of a man is respect. And so to spread the skirt over one is a sign of protection still today in the East. And if you would go to a modern day Jewish or Hindu wedding in the East, you would see they'll put a cotton cloth or a shawl over the bridegroom. Will put it over the bride as a sign of, I will protect you. You are mine, and not in a possessive sense. You are mine, and I will give my life for you. Now, what does that sound like? The Hebrew word for nearest kin is literally one who has the right to redeem. If you look back at Deuteronomy 25, just a couple chapters, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, just a few chapters before Ruth, we see in Deuteronomy 25, it says this: If brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead shall not be married outside of the family to a stranger. Now Ruth didn't have this option, right? Because her brother-in-law died as well, Orpah's husband. Her husband's brother shall go in to her and take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And okay, again, sounds weird to us as in the 21st century culture. I would not want this to happen for me, right? I love my brothers-in-law, but not in that sense. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his brother who is dead. That his, I'm not sure why that has lowercase t, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. This is very important. Again, we're talking about a genealogical society. We're talking about a patriarchal society where the firstborn gets a double portion. This is very critical. This was a way to ensure not only that the widow would be taken care of, but that the family lineage would continue on. And we're talking about God's chosen people, right? They would bless. Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham, that they would continue, that they would be the ones to bless all nations. Essentially, this is the rite of redemption, to bring life out of death. To bring life out of death. To restore life to that which was dead. Here is the one, Boaz, who has the legal right to restore life to death. That's the point here. He has the legal right to redeem. And that's what Jesus had. He left the glory of heaven to come down and to redeem us on the cross. He bought, if you will, just like what Boaz is going to do, all the fallen estate of Adam's sons so that they could have the chance, should they choose, free will, Jesus Christ, the one and only Son of God. And if they would choose that, to be redeemed. Every man, woman, and child has that opportunity to become redeemed, to be the righteousness of Christ, to become the righteousness of Christ. He has bought back all of the fallen sons of Adam. There is a C.S. Lewis for you, if anything, right? Yes, go watch Chronicles of Narnia now through the eyes of that. Chapter 4. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's wife, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name, see that? It's not about his needs. His name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are my witnesses. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life, oh, there it is, and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. The boy who is to be born of this union, the strength of the Redeemer, Boaz, and the beauty of the humility, Ruth. He is the restoration of life, of life. This is the ministry of Jesus. He restores life unto us. He takes the dead and all things of death and brings them back into vitality and life. And we read, what is Obed's name? Obed's name means, guess what it means, my dearest friend? It means worship. When beauty is joined with strength, the house is filled with worship. Ruth is bound to Boaz. Redeemed humility equals worship. The house is filled with worship. I want to stop there, but I'm going to pause for my friend because it's just for her, if no one else. Out of the 66 books of the Bible, there are only 2 that are named for women. Esther, which is read at the Feast of Purim, and Ruth, her scroll is read at the Feast of Pentecost. The book of Ruth is the true church of Jesus Christ. She was Gentile, Boaz was a Hebrew. He redeemed her possession and then became her husband. All have sinned, both Jew and Gentile, and Christ died for all. The church is the bride that Christ redeemed at the marriage supper of the Lamb. At the marriage supper of the Lamb, where we will all worship the redeemed because they have become humble. We're redeemed because of our humility, and that's why we worship Jesus, 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 Him and Him alone. He gives and takes away. Blessed be His name. Ruth's unselfishness and loyalty are the virtues which friendship must be built upon. Blessings. I'll see you next week.